The purpose of this video today is to help you build some visual source analysis strategies. So we're going to be looking back at some sources that we've studied, some visual sources from Mesopotamia, and then you're going to be applying those skills, trying it out with some sources from the civilizations of Egypt and Kush, actually focusing today on Kush. To start, let's remind ourselves, these are some examples of visual sources from Mesopotamia. A visual source could be a sculpture or a tablet. Here's a tablet showing the cuneiform writing with the symbols representing barley. A visual source could also be a map, or it could be an image, a drawing, or photograph, or a painting. So here's the Standard of Ur that we've studied, and here's an image from the Code of Hammurabi. We have two strategies to use today. The first is called zoom in, and this is actually the strategy that we've used in class when we come up to the board and point out what we're noticing by zooming in on a part of the image. The second strategy is called quadrants. First, we'll review the zoom in strategy. So to use this strategy, it helps to start by looking over the image and thinking about what really draws your eye. And then we're zooming in as though like a camera lens, so focusing in on one specific part of the image and thinking about, in detail, what does this one specific part tell us about the whole. So in this image of the Standard of Ur, I'm giving you an example. I've chosen to zoom in on this figure down here at the bottom, this figure who's lying on the ground under a horse and carriage. And I'm going to think to myself today, I want you to think using these two questions. So first of all, you're going to make some observations. What's going on in this image, painting, or artifact? I just described it for you, and I'm actually going to sketch this into my notes and jot down some of what I'm noticing. The second question is, what can I infer about the civilization this came from? What does this image, this Standard of Ur, tell me about Mesopotamia? And so I'm thinking to myself in the context of the whole image, this could give me some information about social structure. It could give me some information about government, about how people's lives were organized, and the fact that they may have had many battles. So I'll come back to that in a moment. The next strategy I want you to try today is called quadrants. To use the quadrant strategy, start by dividing the image into 4 squares. So here we have 4 quadrants. And I'm going to start by looking at the upper right-hand corner. So focusing in on this quadrant, here are some things that we noticed as a class when we analyzed this. We have this image right here who appears larger than the rest. This may have been a king or a pharaoh. Then we have some other images who seem to be walking in pairs with one person escorting the other person. So we inferred that perhaps these are captives or prisoners with a captor, with someone escorting them before the king. So my next question is, what can I infer about the civilization this came from? I'm making some inferences about government right now. This is giving me some visual information about how people perceive their ruler, the fact that they may have had one ruler or king who was in charge of the government and had many duties, including, it looks like this person has a responsibility for deciding on the fate of the prisoners. What will we do with these people? When I zoomed in, I also have this part here from the next section, and this may have been a scene where the prisoners were actually being captured. It looks like a scene of the war or the battle. So I could continue analyzing here, jotting down other things I'm noticing. So here's what I want you to use today. In your notebook, please copy this visual organizer, this graphic organizer. So in the center of your page, you're going to have a box where you're zooming in. And you can start with this strategy. So zoom in on one particular image, one particular figure, something that draws your eye. Then, with the rest of your page, divide it into the 4 quadrants. And your job here is to sketch what you see. So it doesn't need to be great art, but I want you to try to sketch what you see and jot down your observations and inferences. For example, here's my beautiful artwork. So I've zoomed in on this dying figure. I could add the horse and the carriage that this person was lying under. And I've jotted down, I think this is a dying figure, possibly a casualty of war. And I could continue adding my inferences. Then I analyzed the first quadrant, and I'm going to continue sketching some of those pairs of people coming before the king. I've jotted down that this is a tall figure who appears to be a king or nobility, and this may show us something about the role of government in Mesopotamia. So you have some sources to analyze today from the civilization of Kush or Nubia. As you do that, remember you need to be jotting in your notes, starting by sketching, jotting down observations, thinking about what's going on in this image, painting, or artifact, and then jotting some inferences. What can I infer about the civilization this came from? Try your best to add as much detail as you can and really fill up the page. If you feel uncertain about how to continue, feel free to come back and look at this video, or check in with a classmate, work quietly with a classmate, and compare what you've noticed and try to add to your inferences. I've also posted some information on Schoology after you've analyzed the 2 images for today. There's some additional secondary source information that may help you to come back and make some new inferences. So go ahead and look at that when you've finished jotting these your notes for these 2 sources.